Welcome, everyone. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send this out to everyone who's registered for the webinar so you don't miss anything. I'm the co-founder and CEO of STRATAFOLIO, an online software solution that was designed to help commercial real estate owners optimize their real estate portfolio management while using QuickBooks. And we do this all specifically for people who own and manage commercial real estate, such as shopping centers, offices, retail, industrial, really anything that has a multi-year lease. My co-founder, Uriel Barillas, and I founded the company because as real estate owners ourselves, we recognized how underserved the commercial real estate market was if you were not at the enterprise level. So we built it. Matt, I think you're still on mute.
There. Well, thank you so much for having me, Jerry, and really excited about this webinar today. I've been with QuickBooks Intuit for 23 years and have been very excited to work along with product engineering, and a lot of the marketing and different activities where we work with business owners to really help them. What I'm super excited about today is, of course, this partnership with STRATAFOLIO. Growing up, my dad had a business. I watched him do so many things manually and really worked with him on how do we automate? How do we make running your business a bit easier? And I think this partnership between STRATAFOLIO and QuickBooks is an excellent example of that. So looking forward to the webinar today.
Thank you, Matt. So what happens when owners use, whoops, I think I went too far. Here's what we see happening in the commercial real estate industry today. We see pain. We see owners are hobbling together disjointed programs and spreadsheets, trying to get them all to work together seamlessly. We see owners using residential real estate tools for their commercial portfolios because they think that's the only option. We see owners spending weeks every month on manual tasks, like lease escalations, gathering rent rolls, CAM reconciliation, and 100 other little things, but all manually. And finally, we see owners completing double the work by not using a software that integrates directly with QuickBooks. What happens when owners use a host of systems to run their real estate business? You have spreadsheet files that you have to update manually each month. You're transferring data from one system to another. You have documents and paper files, and you have important facts that you've memorized in your head, or at least you think you've memorized them. And all of this is dangerous. Each of these red X's represents lost time and revenue. What are the dangers of doing it this way? That's like what's in this picture. You have no direct connection to QuickBooks, so anything you have to do is a double entry, which then creates room for manual error because the tools don't speak to each other. And finally, you have the lost time that could be spent on value add growth activities and lost income from mistakes or bringing on more deals. Look, we know we're not the only players in the game. There are countless property management solutions that are available. But at STRATAFOLIO, we focus on commercial real estate and people who use QuickBooks. And thank you, everyone, for participating in the poll. So how do we support the commercial real estate industry? How do you run an efficient commercial real estate business? You need to find a tool that pays your employees, tracks time, connects to a good accounting system, tracks real estate specific activities correctly, and then you need to find qualified people who know that same system. Those are some of the benefits of using STRATAFOLIO and QuickBooks together. So with STRATAFOLIO, we understand that you have multiple legal entities or P&Ls or financial statements, however you want to think of it. We know you have a combination of entities that you're managing together. And we're able to consolidate and normalize that data for a quick and easy view. And we manage all the critical lease dates. We can invoice effortlessly across your company, all of those company files, while taking into account any escalations, and CAM reconciliation. And CAM, as you will see later, is truly a breeze.
And so on the other side of that, now that you've automated, made more efficient those workflows for managing your commercial real estate properties and tenants, what can you do instead of pulling that data together manually like we looked at? Once you get that data over to QuickBooks, how does that help you with reporting and dashboards? Well, we have a really nice suite of tools in QuickBooks Online Advanced. Things like customizable dashboards so you can define what KPIs are most important to you and have these dashboards run on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Also under reporting, closely related to dashboards is, let's say you need to create reports for business management, personnel, or investors. You can actually set up report templates and then have these auto run again on whatever schedule basis that you would like. You can even set up reminders to automatically have the person responsible for those reports, not only to go grab those reports, but also email them out again to the appropriate parties. Let's say then you're doing some property development. Maybe you want to create a budget. Maybe you want to understand, all the expenses going in before you start getting those tenants and those leases. Well, you can create a budget in QuickBooks Online and even do estimates versus actuals as you go through that process. Something also we're really excited about there is cash flow planning. Again, if you need to remodel a property, if you need to maybe take some major or incur a major business expense, what cash flow planning does for you is it actually ties into your bank accounts with AI. It tells you what your cash flow has been like for the last 6 to 12 months, but then will project out what it can be over the next 6 to 12 months if all things remain the same. If you know you're taking on new leases, if you know you're about to open up new properties, you can bake those things into this sandbox environment so it doesn't actually hit your books. You can put both income and expenses and plan for the future. Timesheets, if you have employees that you want to schedule and see how their time factors into your profitability, as well as cutting a payroll check. There's quite a bit we can do to really help run and manage and make your real estate business as efficient as possible. And lastly, budgeting and forecasting. Another great tool as you get all that rich data from STRATAFOLIO over to QuickBooks. You can set up multi-year budgets. You can set up forecasts. You can see how you're doing against those as you progress through the year so you stay on top of your business. So just a few of the great ways that we work together.
Yeah, so with STRATAFOLIO and QuickBooks combined, you really do get a total commercial property management solution. And in the next slides, we're going to highlight a few features that illustrate that very point. As the property owner of a commercial building, Mark had to deal with CAM reconciliation every year, which he generally didn't get to until March or April. One year, a tenant disputed the charges, claiming that some expenses were not related to common area maintenance. Mark had to spend hours reviewing lease agreements and invoices, and even had to get a lawyer involved to resolve the dispute. This experience made him realize just how challenging CAM reconciliation is, but even more, he realized the risk and costs associated when it is not handled correctly. What created this dispute were two things: poor bookkeeping and a lack of a system. With STRATAFOLIO, we work with your team to clearly identify the reimbursable expenses associated with CAM reconciliation. These categories are fully configurable and are based on your chart of accounts and are calculated based on the tenant's prorated share. These categories are displayed here, and those are CAM, common area maintenance, insurance, and taxes. Since our main focus at STRATAFOLIO is commercial real estate, we understand you have to have flexibility regarding your operating expenses. And with our product, you get that. The CAM category. This includes all of those common area maintenance expenses that are specific to your location, your area. It could be lawn care, it could be snow removal. But then we also include insurance and taxes. So what you're going to do is you're going to set your budget for the tenant at the beginning of the period. At any point, you can see what that budgeted amount is in relation to the actuals. In this example, we budgeted a little over $109,000 for the year, and we have invoiced to date about $36,000. So if we run that reconciliation today, we would owe that tenant about $6,000 because we are currently running under budget and have only had about $31,000 in expense. Now, to run a CAM reconciliation report, select the time period, and in just one click, you're able to produce a professional looking CAM reconciliation report that can be shared with your tenant. And these expenses are flowing directly from QuickBooks. Ultimately, this provides peace of mind, but also you will be able to confidently and quickly produce your CAM report shortly after the start of the year or at any time without any double data entry. It's a professional report that can be customized and it's ready on demand. And this will certainly help with any risk around a potential litigation. But most importantly, you are not carrying extra expenses and you're not surprising your tenant with a mid-year catch-up invoice. So all around, this is a win-win. But the most frequent reason people contact us is because they've missed a lease escalations, sometimes for years. And yes, these tenants did sign a contract, but if both parties have missed it, it becomes incredibly awkward and embarrassing because it also means as the owner, you don't have great control over your processes. So not only does it mean you've missed revenue, but you've also wouldn't want your lender or investors to catch wind of that either. During the onboarding process and that abstraction process, we determine all of the tenant escalations that are going to go into effect for the life of the lease. That way, when it's time to invoice, you can easily invoice across all of your QuickBooks files with just one click. During the invoicing, STRATAFOLIO is pulling the correct lease rate for the month we're invoicing. And we do this for every tenant, every month with zero manual manipulation. And this activity syncs directly with QuickBooks. So in this situation, we're prepared to invoice 16 tenants with their current lease rates and their current CAM charges. And this is across 4 separate QuickBooks company files. This definitely solves the problem of missed lease escalations. Most teams aren't also familiar with the pain of tracking tenant certificates of insurance and the endless attempts at reaching out. Without question, managing COIs is a burdensome process, but it has to be done. And unfortunately, we have seen the negative outcomes when this process is not managed well, and tenants accidentally forget to renew their insurance, and then natural disaster steps in. Then the owner is caught holding the bag for all of the repairs. With STRATAFOLIO, we take into account what that lease requires from an insurance perspective, and we attach that information directly to the tenant. And as that tenant's insurance is coming due, we start sending messages both to the tenant and the insurance provider about the policy that is up for renewal. At any time, you can access that tenant's insurance view and see every tenant and the status of each insurance requirement and policy. So here you can sort or filter on the data you need to know so that you can take action, or you can share this information with your investors, lenders, or insurance providers. But this information is all at your fingertips. We only focus on really a few of the management activities that cause disruption, wasted time, and financial loss because of lack of automation, but there are many more. What we'd like to show you is a real example of a return on investment with STRATAFOLIO and QuickBooks based on an ROI survey results over the last 12 months. That average customer spends a half an hour per month managing their commercial portfolio. They're paying that resource an average of $43 an hour. And they acknowledge that they have lost $21,000 alone from missed lease escalations. And for the companies in this survey, they identified $55,000 in savings that they could have if they were using Stratafolio. And on average, our customer subscription and onboarding are less than half of that. The system easily pays for itself and provides peace of mind that to not only you, but to your lenders as well, who are right now closely watching the real estate market. But you can check this out for yourself. The ROI calculator is on our website, so feel free to jump in there and check it out.
Well, thank you so much, Jerry. Now we wanted to, in addition to, again, all the workflows that we can help automate and how we can make your business run smoother in real estate. Again, when that data gets over to your financial package, QuickBooks Online, when it hits your chart of accounts, what type of tools will you have? How can you take a look at your most current, accurate, up-to-date information? And again, use it not just to know where your business is at today, but also plan ahead for where it's going to be in the future. Well, let's take a look at this quick video on some of the key feature sets you'll get by having your data imported into QuickBooks Online Advanced. Okay, so I know that video went kind of fast, but there was a lot of great features in there. And if you have any questions about those, we'll talk about a little bit more about them here in just a moment. And we're also happy to dive into those and how those would benefit you in a follow-up call. But go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah, so why Stratafolio and QuickBooks Online? So we touched on this briefly when we were talking about the intangible ROIs with lenders and others. And when you're able to rapidly produce reports, answer questions, provide rent rolls, or even a debt summary, you become that client that's easy to work with. Your data is trustworthy. And as a result, you will experience slightly lower interest rates. Whether it's stated overtly or not, you are being judged on the quality of your data and your processes. So better data means lower interest rates. And by having all of your files organized in one system, you are paying lower fees also during tax time because there's less work for your accountant to do. Second, you're going to have peace of mind because you're no longer going to have the anxiety that you might have dropped the ball somewhere. Third, that tenant's experience is so much better. There's no more awkward conversations about missed escalations, and they're going to be able to get their CAM done earlier in the year so that tenants can then prepare accordingly. And you look professional to your tenants, so they're happy and the tenants will want to renew. So you can avoid the cost of relisting, vacant space, broker fees to refill, all of that. It's an entirely better tenant experience.
Yeah, and lastly, we've talked a lot today about how to make your business more efficient with Stratafolio and QuickBooks. And very excited from CAM reconciliations to all these different features, as well as, again, once you get that data into QuickBooks Online, being able to automate your workflows from an accounting perspective. And what do we mean by that? Well, one really nice thing of QuickBooks Online Advanced, and that video kind of covered it, but just to cover it a little bit more in depth here, is let's say that you have a bill, you've incurred an expense, whether it's utilities, whether it's common area maintenance, whatever the case may be, as expenses are flowing from Stratafolio over into QuickBooks. Do you have someone, an accounts payable person, who needs to know that bills are there and need to be paid? If bills are a large sum, maybe more than $500, do they need to go through potentially an approval process, or maybe even go through a chain of people before ultimately that check is cut? Well, in QuickBooks Online Advanced, we have what's called a workflow automation tool. You can basically write if-then scenarios into your software. So if a bill comes in, notify, let's say I was the accounts payable person, notify Matt Bright, and then it'll automatically send me an email, as well as when I log into QuickBooks, I can see all my tasks, all my bills I need to review for the day. Again, if I'm an administrative assistant and I need to run those reports and get them out to investors or other business owners, you can set up a workflow for that. There's quite a few ways where, again, we can help automate the accounting side of things, in addition to the commercial real estate side of things. So very excited about this partnership and excited to tell you more about it in a follow-up call.
And one thing that we did want to mention as well is that now at Stratafolio, we have an exclusive bundle package with Intuit products. So feel free to jump onto our website, schedule a demo today, and then you can learn about how we are offering that bundle product so that you can get some perpetual savings over the lifetime of your subscription. And now we're going to address some of the questions that are out there. And while you're watching and we're going through some of the questions we've received, here is the link to the schedule a demo. You can also contact us as well. One of the questions that we received was, how do we ensure escalations are programmed into Stratafolio and that you're updating the reoccurring invoices in QuickBooks? And really what we're doing is the invoicing is truly happening out of Stratafolio. So when those invoices are created in Stratafolio, we are pushing that data back over to QuickBooks and then pulling it back so that you can email all of your invoices out at once. So all of that data really is in Stratafolio, and we're sharing it with QuickBooks. We also had a question on, is this software available to residential real estate rentals? It is. However, I would say we focus primarily on commercial real estate. But we do have customers out there who have a large portfolio of commercial real estate, and they have a couple of residential houses, and they will include those as well. Lindsay, did we have any other questions that you wanted us to address?
We did. Yeah, guys, that's been really great. You've answered so many great questions. We did have a couple come through ahead of time, 3 or 4 more. So Ellie asked, how do you handle multiple entities with separate financial statements?
Great question. Yeah, Stratafolio was built on that very foundation that most people are going to have more than one legal entity or more than one financial statement. We understand as commercial real estate owners, you are going to set up a separate legal entity for every asset that you purchase. Probably. We understand there's also lots of different ways to build a commercial real estate portfolio. But Stratafolio is built on the foundation that you will have many separate legal entities. And when we connect to your QuickBooks files, we pull all of that together, and then we are able to provide you a consolidated view, and we've normalized the data so that you can look at it with one asset class or 2 entities together. So it gives you control quickly to see how your entire portfolio is performing.
Great question. Another question we had ahead of time was, is there a portal for tenants?
Yes, there is a portal for tenants. Tenants can log in, they can pay through ACH, they can access the ability to submit work orders, they can access their leases. So they can communicate with that owner directly through the tenant portal.
Great. We actually had a live question come in, and the question asks, can you shed light on rent roll creation and how it is integrated with QuickBooks?
Right. So the rent roll creation really does happen in STRATAFOLIO. So the tenants are the customers in QuickBooks, but the details around those tenants, the length of their lease, the amount that lease is going to escalate over time is in STRATAFOLIO. The CAM for the current period is in STRATAFOLIO. We're tracking all of the vacancies in STRATAFOLIO. So when we produce that rent roll, a significant amount of that information is coming from STRATAFOLIO, but it's connected to QuickBooks as well from the tenant side and the income side.
Great. Another question asks, profit and loss by entity. How do you add in new properties after QuickBooks and the chart of accounts is already set up and in use? I guess that's a two-part question.
Yeah, no worries. You know, you do not have to bring in a brand new file to STRATAFOLIO. We work with people who have had files open for truly decades. We integrate directly with that chart of accounts. And so line by line, we will integrate your chart of accounts to our chart of accounts. Sometimes it does result in someone wanting to clean up their chart of accounts before we integrate, but it doesn't matter. We can't integrate a messy chart of accounts. And then as we're pulling in that data, we're reading all of the expenses or income associated with the line items in each of those accounts in QuickBooks and pulling it into STRATAFOLIO.
Looks like there's 2 or 3 more questions. How easily compatible is STRATAFOLIO with QuickBooks? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, incredibly compatible. It is. We work closely with the Intuit team, and Matt and Jill have been wonderful to work with. Everyone at Intuit has been a great resource for us to work with. But we are on the App Store, and in order to be on that App Store, it means that we had to go through a penetration test and meet certain criteria. So it is important that we maintain that relationship every single year. So Intuit doesn't let us be a part of that marketplace unless we have also met their criteria.
All right, there's one last question, and I think this may be a question that you and Matt can answer. It asks, does your software manage construction and development?
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, yeah. So this is where the partnership of STRATAFOLIO and QuickBooks is very exciting. So while STRATAFOLIO can set up a loan for a property maybe you're developing or have acquired, it's not going to necessarily track all the expenses that go into development or remodeling or other things like that. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a solution. What's great is if you acquire a property and you need to put expenses in it, once that property is created in STRATAFOLIO, over in QuickBooks, you can treat that property like a job or a project. Okay, you can create a project in QuickBooks, and you know how contractors use that and how you would use that is to track all the income and expenses. Well, I shouldn't say income, track all the expenses. And what I meant by expenses is both hours. So, you know, if you have actual W-2 employees or 1099s, contractors who are coming out and doing work on the property, as well as then materials. So you can track all of your expenses to a project, and you can estimate that out, give yourself what you think your budget is going to be. And then as time goes on, as development goes on, as more expenses, you can put all of those to that project and then see how you're doing. You know, if you're halfway through, you can run an estimate versus actuals and see if you think you're going to run over either on labor or materials. But that's how you would handle development of a new property before you know, STRATAFOLIO takes over the tenants and the rent roll and all that good stuff. If you want to do some development, track all those expenses, you can do it with projects in QuickBooks Online Advanced.
Yeah, and I would also mention from Stratafolio side, we have a fair number of commercial real estate developers who are customers. And so once that construction phase has happened, they have their strip mall or warehouse or industrial building ready and operational. And that's where we really come in and help with managing the tenants and that tenant relationship and managing the expenses post operation. And that's really where we come in and shine. And even during that building phase, a lot of owners want to track the debt associated with that property. And that becomes important for them when they're trying to put together all their debt and get approved for that construction loan. So we become an important part of that early stage process of getting that loan. And then once that property is completed, we're there to support managing it after the fact.
That was it for the questions, Jerry and Matt. Thanks so much.
All right. Once again, I just want to mention the fact that if you want to schedule a demo, click the link or go to the link that hyperlink that is on the screen here, or else you can reach out and contact us directly at the phone number on there. We would love to speak with you. Thank you.